Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a question of scale. When we talk about athletes, usually we're talking about human beings who are just, better at moving than the rest of us. They run faster, they jump higher, whatever.
Sure, a more optimized version of a human.
Exactly. But today, I feel like we aren't just talking about a basketball player. Calling this guy a basketball player feels a bit like calling the Grand Canyon a hole in the ground. It's technically true, but it misses the sheer magnitude of the thing entirely.
That is a very, very fair distinction to start with. I mean, there are athletes, and then there are figures who somehow, they just transcend their sport. They become a piece of the furniture of pop culture.
Yes.
You stop seeing them as a center or a forward, and you start seeing them as, I don't know, a brand, a force of nature, or an icon.
Exactly. And this guy, he is the furniture, the house, and the foundation. We are, of course, talking about Shaquille O'Neal. But honestly, I feel like just saying Shaq is almost reductive. The guy has a million aliases.
Oh, it's part of the mythology. He creates these personas to match the moment, to match the city he's in.
I know a few of them, obviously. The Diesel, Superman. But I was looking at the list, and there are some deep cuts in there. The big cactus. The big galactus.
The big cactus was from his time in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And the big galactus is just, well, if you know your comic books, Galactus eats worlds. It fits.
And it does fit.
But my personal favorite, I think it has to be the big Aristotle.
The big Aristotle. Wait, where does that even come from? Was he quoting philosophy in post-game interviews or something?
In a way, yeah. He
Right.
dubbed himself that after winning the MVP in 2000.
Yeah.
He said, and I love this, he said, I'm the big Aristotle because I was quoting consistency. It was his way of saying he had mastered the logic of the game.
I love that. And that's really our mission today. We want to go beyond the commercials, the Icy Hot, the Gold Bond, the Papa John's, the General Insurance.
The list goes on and on.
It does. We want to really unpack the man behind the memes. We need to look at two specific things. First, the sheer statistical, physical dominance of his NBA career. And I mean the kind of dominance that literally broke the equipment.
And that is not a metaphor. We need to be very clear about that.
Right. And second, the surprisingly complex portfolio of his life off the court. We're talking law enforcement, we're talking doctoral studies, we're talking platinum rap albums.
It's just the study in duality.
Yeah.
That's the theme I want us to keep coming back to. On one hand, you have this raw physical power, a 300-plus pound wrecking ball that forced a billion-dollar sports league to change its rules and its hardware.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have a personality that absolutely refused to be boxed in as just an athlete. He demanded to be a scholar, a cop, a rapper, and a businessman all at once.
So let's start at the beginning. Because for a guy who ended up being larger than life, his start was.
Well, I was surprised by how unstable it was initially. He was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1972. Right. And to understand Shaq, the psychology of Shaq, you have to look at the family dynamic immediately. It wasn't the typical nuclear family. He was estranged from his biological father, Joe Tunney.
Okay.
Tony struggled with drug addiction and was actually imprisoned when Shaq was just an infant.
That's a tough start. I mean, did he have any relationship with him growing up at all?
No. None. In fact, Tony agreed to relinquish his parental rights to Shaq's stepfather, Philip Arthur Harrison. And this is the pivotal figure in Shaq's life, the Sarge.
The Sarge. I'm assuming that's not just a nickname.
No, not at all. Philip Arthur Harrison was a career Army sergeant. And that military background is the key to everything. It meant discipline, it meant structure, and it meant moving around constantly. They went from New Jersey to bases in Germany, then to Texas.
So constant change.
Constant change, but with a very firm hand guiding him.
You mentioned the biological father, Joe Tunney. I know Shaq eventually reconciled with him way later in life in 2016, but for a long time, there was some serious bad blood there, right?
Bad blood might be an understatement. I mean, Shaq didn't just ignore him. He publicly disowned him.
Yeah.
If you go back to his 1994 rap album, and yes, we are absolutely going to do a deep dive on the rap career later.
Oh, we have to.
He has a track called Biological Didn't Bother.
I remember the title, but I don't recall the lyrics. I mean, that title says a lot on its own.
It's incredibly raw for what was mostly a 90s party album. There's a line where he raps, "Phil is my father because my biological didn't bother." He's basically telling millions of listeners, I have a dad, and it's the guy who raised me, not the guy who made me.
Wow, that is heavy to put that out there so publicly.
It shaped him. It really did.
Yeah.
He had this intense loyalty to Phil Harrison because Phil was the one who showed up, and Phil was the one who had to manage the physical anomaly that Shaq was becoming.
Let's talk about that anomaly because kids hit growth spurts, sure, But Shaq didn't just hit a spurt, he hit a multiplier. He was on a different trajectory entirely.
Try to visualize this. By age 13, Shaquille O'Neal was already 6'6".
13. I was struggling to clear 5 feet at 13. He was looking down on grown men in middle school.
Exactly. He was probably taller than his teachers.
Yeah.
And by 16, he's 6'10". He eventually settles in San Antonio, Texas, playing for Robert G. Cole High School. And the record. It's honestly laughable. It looks like a typo.
What was it?
Over 2 years, his team went 68-1.
6-8-1? That's not a basketball season. That's a conquest. That's a military campaign.
It was. In his senior year alone, he grabbed 791 rebounds.
Yeah.
That is still a state record for a player in any classification in Texas.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, he wasn't just tall. A lot of 7-foot teenagers are awkward, lanky, uncoordinated.
The Bambi on ice face.
Right. Shaq was explosive. He was powerful even then.
So he goes to LSU, and there's a great story about the coach, Dale Brown, right? He found him early.
Yeah, Dale Brown is a legend at LSU. He actually met Shaq years earlier on a military base in Germany. He was doing a clinic or something. He saw this massive kid and asked him, "Soldier, what rank are you?" And Shaq, who was like 13 at the time, said, "I'm not a soldier. I'm just a kid."
Ha.
I bet.
Dale Brown probably started drooling right there. He kept tabs on him and eventually got him to LSU.
And he just dominates the SEC two-time player of the year. But I want to get technical for a second. You mentioned earlier that Shaq was a physical anomaly, but he also had skill. Tell me about the Black Tornado.
The Black Tornado. This was Shaq's name for his signature drop step. It's a terrifying move if you're a defender, truly.
Okay, paint the picture for me. I'm a center in the SEC, probably a pretty big guy myself, and I'm guarding Shaq. What happens?
Okay, so you're leaning on him with all your weight, which is probably a mistake to begin with. He posts you up. He feels where your leverage is.
Yeah.
Then suddenly he spins baseline. But he's not just spinning. He's using his elbows, let's say liberally, to clear space.
Liberally, I like that.
He's creating a centrifugal force that you literally cannot stop without being thrown into the third row.
It's like trying to stop a revolving door that's spinning at 50 miles an hour.
Exactly. He spins, clears you out, and dunks. It's simple physics. Mass times acceleration equals get out of my way.
So he leaves LSU early, and we will come back to the education part because that's a huge part of his story. And he enters the 1992 draft. Orlando Magic take him #1 overall. And immediately, the NBA realizes they have a problem.
They realized they had an infrastructure problem.
I love this part of the story because we say players break the game metaphorically. Shaq literally broke the game.
Literally. In his rookie season, on 2 separate occasions, he destroyed the backboard support systems.
I want to dwell on this because I don't think modern fans really understand. We see glass shatter sometimes. That's a thing. This wasn't just glass breaking, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
Huh.
The most famous one was against the Phoenix Suns. Shaq goes up for a dunk, hangs on the rim for a second, and the entire steel stanchion, the heavy hydraulic arm that holds the basket up, just collapses. It folds like an accordion.
It wasn't just the backboard. It was the whole apparatus.
The whole thing. The backboard drops, the shot clock smashes onto his back. It was wild.
It looked like the basket was bowing down to him.
It was dangerous. The actual steel welds failed. And then later that season, against the New Jersey Nets, he did it again. He pulled the entire backboard down, shot clock and all.
Imagine being the facilities manager for the NBA, watching that on TV. You're just sweating. Your phone is ringing off the hook.
It caused a legitimate panic. The NBA realized our equipment cannot handle this one human being. So in the off-season, they had to hire engineers to redesign the backboards for the entire league.
So the whole league.
For the whole league. They added reinforced steel braces and new stability systems, specifically because Shaq was tearing them down.
That is the ultimate flex. They had to reinforce the buildings because I was too strong.
He wins Rookie of the Year, obviously. He's the first player ever to be Player of the Week in his first week in the league. By his 3rd season, he's leading the league in scoring. He takes Orlando to the finals in '95 against Hakeem Olajuwon.
They got swept in that series, right? That was a tough one for him.
They did. Hakeem was at the absolute peak of his powers, and he outplayed Shaq. Schooled him a bit with the dream shake. But Shaq was still putting up, 28 and 12. He was there. He was ready.
But the dynasty doesn't happen in Orlando. And this is where the business side and honestly the emotional side of Shaq comes into play. I feel like this is a turning point in NBA history.
The summer of 1996. It's huge.
Yeah.
Shaq is a free agent. He's playing for Dream Team 3rd in the Atlanta Olympics. He expects Orlando to just roll out the red carpet and offer him the max. But the Orlando Sentinel, the local newspaper, decides to run a poll.
A poll. That seems unwise.
It's fateful. They asked the fans two questions. First, should the Magic fire coach Brian Hill if that's a condition for Shaq returning? 82% said no. Okay, fine. Coaches are respected.
That's fair enough. What was the second question?
The second question was, is Shaquille O'Neal worth $115 million?
Oh, no. I can see where this is going. This is a disaster waiting to happen.
91.3% of respondents said no.
Hold on. 91%. That sounds insane. Was he actually underperforming at the time, or was this just Orlando fans being cheap? What was the context there?
It was a different era.
Mm.
I mean, $100 billion contracts were brand new. People couldn't wrap their heads around the number. It seemed like monopoly money. But for Shaq, you have to put yourself in his shoes. He opens the paper and sees that 9 out of 10 people in his home city don't think he's worth the money.
That has to sting. That's a public rejection.
It devastated him. His Olympic teammates were teasing him about it. Charles Barkley and those guys were laughing, saying, they don't want you, man. He felt completely underappreciated. And on top of that, he also had friction with his teammate Penny Hardaway.
Right. The money issue.
Yeah, Penny wanted to be the main guy. Shaq felt he was the main guy and should be paid like it. There was jealousy.
So the door is open, and in walks Jerry West and the Los Angeles Lakers.
The logo himself. Jerry West sees the opening. He clears cap space. He trades Vlade Divac for a high school kid named Kobe Bryant to clear even more room, and offers Shaq 7 years, $121 million.
And Shaq gives this quote that I think sums up his attitude perfectly. He says something like, I'm tired of hearing about money, money, money. I just want to play the game, drink Pepsi, wear Reebok.
Which is classic Shaq. Even in a moment of frustration, he's dropping his sponsors. He's always branding. He can't help himself.
So he goes to L.A., 1996. He teams up with that rookie, Kobe Bryant. And I think in our collective memory, we think they won immediately. But it took a minute, didn't it?
It was a rocky start, a really rocky start. They got swept by the Utah Jazz in the playoffs twice. It wasn't instant magic. It wasn't until the 1999-2000 season, when Phil Jackson arrived as coach, that everything finally clicked into place.
And I want to pause on that 1999-2000 season, because you told me before that this might be the single greatest, most dominant season anyone has ever played.
I will stand by that. If you look at the dominance, the sheer force, 1999-2000 Shaq is the apex predator of basketball history.
Okay, let's run the resume for that 1 year.
Okay, so that season he wins the NBA championship. He wins the Finals MVP. He wins the regular season MVP. He wins the All-Star MVP. He also wins the scoring title.
That's absurd. Has anyone else ever done that triple crown of MVPs? Season, All-Star, and Finals?
Only 2 other people in the history of the league. Willis Reed did it once, and Michael Jordan did it twice.
Yeah.
Shaq did it in 2000. And about that regular season MVP, he was 1 vote shy of being the first unanimous MVP in history.
Oh, I know the story. Fred Hickman from CNN, the one guy who voted for Allen Iverson.
And Shaq never let that go. He held a grudge against Fred Hickman for decades. But beyond the awards, look at the efficiency. He led the league in field goal percentage that year, shooting nearly 58%.
And he did that a lot, right?
He did that 10 times in his career, which broke Wilt Chamberlain's record of 9.
That means he wasn't just scoring volume, he was scoring effectively. Almost every time he shot, it was a high percentage look.
He was inevitable. It got to the point where teams would sign these big, lumbering 7-footers just to have 6 fouls to use on Shaq. He was getting guys paid just to be tackling dummies.
There was a weakness, a very big, very obvious weakness. And we have to talk about the free throws.
The kryptonite. His one fatal flaw. A career 52.7% shooter from the line.
There was that one game against Seattle where he missed all 11 attempts. That is a record for futility. It's almost hard to do.
It's statistically improbable. And that weakness created a legitimate strategy, Hack-a-Shaq. It completely changed the rhythm of the game. Coaches, like Don Nelson, realized the math.
What was the math?
If Shaq dunks, that's 2 points guaranteed. It's 100%. If you foul him, he shoots 2 free throws. At 52%, that's basically 1 point per possession. So mathematically, you are saving 1 point every time you foul him instead of letting him shoot.
It turned the games into a slog, though. I remember watching those games. Just whistle, free throw, brick. Whistle, free throw, brick. Over and over.
It was ugly. It was terrible to watch. But it was the only way to stop him. And what's fascinating is Shaq's perspective on it. He always claimed he shot 80% in practice.
I've heard that.
He said it was just a mental block in games, or that he didn't respect the shot enough to focus on it.
Do we believe that, or is that just Shaq saving face?
I think there's some truth to it being mental. But also, look at his hands. I mean, the basketball looks like a grapefruit in his hands. The mechanics of shooting with shoulders that wide and hands that big are actually physically difficult. It's hard to get the touch right.
That's a fair point. So the Lakers three-peat. 2000, 2001, 2002. Shaq is Finals MVP all three times. They are an absolute juggernaut. But internally, the house is burning down. The Kobe-Shaq feud is the stuff of, well, soap operas.
It was a clash of philosophies, a clash of personalities. You had Kobe Bryant, who was obsessive. He was in the gym at 4 a.m., counting his calories, studying tape. He lived and breathed basketball.
And then you had Shaq.
And then you had Shaq, who relied on his natural dominance, liked to party, liked to make movies, and believed in pacing himself. He saw the regular season as a warm-up.
There's a specific quote that I think drove Kobe absolutely insane. The toe injury quote.
Oh, yes. This is maybe the peak of their friction. Shaq had a toe injury that needed surgery. He could have gotten it done early in the summer and been ready for the season. Instead, he waited until training camp started.
And his reasoning was just incredible.
He famously said, "I got hurt on company time, so I'll heal on company time."
I mean, from a labor rights perspective, I kind of respect it. But if you're Kobe Bryant and you've been working out all summer, you're probably blowing steam out of your ears.
It drove a wedge right between them. By the 2003-04 season, it all boiled over. Kobe was giving interviews, questioning Shaq's leadership and fitness. They lost to the Detroit Pistons in the finals, and the management had to choose.
And Shaq wasn't subtle about his contract demands.
No, he was shouting, "Pay me," at the owner, Jerry Buss, during preseason games. The marriage was over. It was done.
And we can't forget the pettiness that followed for years. The diss track.
Years later, it was 2008, Shaq is freestyling at a club in New York. Kobe had just lost the finals to the Celtics. And Shaq grabs the mic and raps, "Kobe, tell me how my ass tastes."
Just mocking him for not being able to win a championship without the big man.
It was petty, it was hilarious, and it was pure Shaq. He never, ever forgot a slight.
So the dynasty breaks up. Shaq gets traded to the Miami Heat in 2004. And this is interesting because a lot of people thought his career might be winding down. He's getting older, he's heavier, but he makes a promise.
He steps off the plane in Miami, holding up a water pistol, and promises the fans he will bring them a championship. And the dynamic in Miami was fascinating because he arrives and he sees Dwayne Wade, a young, explosive guard.
And you'd think, given the whole Kobe situation, Shaq would immediately try to establish dominance and be the #1 guy.
The exact opposite. Shaq immediately gives Wade the keys. He nicknames him Flash. Tells the media, "This is Flash's team. I'm here to support him."
That shows a lot of growth, doesn't it?
Oh,
Or maybe just realism at that point in his career.
A bit of both, I think. He knew he couldn't be the 35-point guy anymore. And it worked. In the 2006 finals against Dallas, Shaq averaged only 13.7 points. That is a far cry from the 30-plus point average he had in the Lakers championships.
A huge drop.
But they won. He took a backseat to Wade to get that 4th ring. It showed he could check his ego if it meant winning.
But the honeymoon didn't last in Miami either. Enter Pat Riley.
Pat Riley and Shaquille O'Neal were like mixing oil and water. I mean, Riley is the godfather. He is notorious for his strict conditioning. He measures body fat percentages every week. He runs these brutal, intense practices.
And Shaq loves a burger. He is not a body fat percentage kind of guy.
Not at all. Shaq was not into the body fat measurements. Riley started to think Shaq was faking injuries to get out of practice. The tension just built and built until it culminated in an altercation.
A physical one.
Shaq allegedly poked Pat Riley in the chest during a practice argument, and Riley, being Riley, slapped his finger away.
You do not poke the Godfather in the chest. That feels like a death wish in the NBA.
It was the end. Shaq was traded to the Phoenix Suns shortly after that.
And this begins the journeyman Shaq phase. We saw him in Phoenix as the big cactus.
Which was actually a great resurgence for him.
Yeah.
The Phoenix Suns medical staff is legendary. They fixed his toe, they worked on his hip. He played 75 games that season and even made the All-Star team again.
Then he goes to Cleveland. Win a ring for the king.
Right, playing with the young LeBron James. But by then, he was really slowing down. He was a role player.
And finally, Boston, the big shamrock.
He wanted to match Kobe's ring count. Kobe had 5. Shaq wanted his 5th. But his body finally just gave out. His Achilles tendon snapped.
And in true Renaissance man fashion, he didn't call a press conference. He didn't have his agent send out a press release. He broke the news himself.
On social media, he used an app called Tout, which doesn't even exist anymore, and Twitter. He just posted a short video saying, "We did it 19 years, baby. I want to thank you very much." He was one of the first major superstars to bypass the traditional media and go direct to the fans like that.
It's so perfectly him. Which brings us to the part of the deep dive I've been waiting for. Because if we stop here, we have a Hall of Fame basketball player, an all-time great. But Shaq is so much more weird and interesting than that. Let's talk about the Renaissance man. Specifically, let's start with the education.
This is something people often overlook or think is just a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. Remember, he left LSU early to go pro. But he made a promise to his mother, Lucille, that he would finish his degree.
And he didn't just buy a degree or get an honorary one, right?
No. He went back to LSU. He took correspondence courses during the off-seasons. He got his bachelor's in general studies in 2000. Phil Jackson actually let him miss a home game to go to his graduation ceremony in Baton Rouge.
That's amazing, but he didn't stop there.
Not even close. He got an MBA online from the University of Phoenix in 2005. But the big one, the one that really sets him apart, is 2012. He earned an Ed.D., a doctorate in education from Barry University.
So we literally have to call him Dr. O'Neal.
We do. And I want to dig into his thesis topic for a second because it is absolutely fascinating. His doctoral capstone was titled The Duality of Humor and Aggression in Leadership Styles.
Wait, pause right there. That is the most meta thing I have ever heard. He wrote a doctoral thesis on being Shaq.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
He analyzed how leaders use humor to diffuse tension and how they use aggression to motivate. Think about his career. He was the class clown, the prankster, the guy dancing in the layup line, but then he was also the guy elbowing you in the face and yelling at teammates to get serious. He used his own life as a case study for academic theory.
That is brilliant. It validates everything he did as a legitimate strategy, not just a personality quirk.
Exactly. It reframes his whole persona.
Okay, from Dr. O'Neal, let's talk about Officer O'Neal. Because we've all seen the photos of him in a police uniform. Is that real? Or is that just a celebrity photo op?
It is surprisingly real. He has a genuine passion for law enforcement. He went through the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Reserve Academy. He became a sworn reserve officer.
But did he actually do the work? Was he out there pulling people over?
He participated in raids.
Raids, actual police raids.
Yes. In Bedford County, Virginia, he was appointed as a special deputy. There are verified stories of him being part of a team executing search warrants. Imagine for a second, you are a criminal, you're sitting in your living room, the door gets kicked in, and a 7'1" giant in a SWAT vest walks in.
I am surrendering immediately. I am confessing to crimes I didn't even commit. Just take me.
It's intimidation at its finest.
Oh.
But he also took the civic duty part seriously. There was an incident in Miami where he witnessed a hate crime.
What happened there?
He saw a man yelling homophobic slurs and assaulting someone. Shaq didn't just watch. He called the police, he gave them a description of the suspect, and he followed the guy safely from a distance until the police arrived. It resulted in an arrest.
So he's actually out there serving and protecting.
He was even named an honorary U.S. Deputy Marshal. He takes it very, very seriously.
Okay, now we have to talk about the money. Business mogul Shaq. Because the stereotype of the athlete who goes broke could not be less applicable here.
Not at all. He is a branding genius. But his investment strategy is what I love. It's very simple. He only invests in things he personally uses and likes.
He was an early investor in Google, right?
He was, which by itself probably set him up for life. But look at the franchises. At one point, he owned 155 Five Guys restaurants. That was like 10% of the entire company's footprint at the time.
Wow.
He owns Auntie Anne's Pretzels, car washes, 40 24-hour fitness centers. He's on the board of Papa John's.
He basically owns the American strip mall.
He does. But there is one business story that I think defines his moral compass. The Reebok story.
I love this story. Break it down for us.
So Shaq had a massive deal with Reebok. He was their guy, making millions. One day, he's leaving an arena, and a woman confronts him. She's a mother. She's upset. She's yelling at him.
What was the problem?
She told him she couldn't afford his shoes for her kids. She said something like, "Why don't you motherfuckers make a shoe that's affordable?" And she was just really emotional about it.
Most athletes would just have security take her away and keep walking.
Shaq didn't. He reached into his pocket and gave her, I think it was $2,000 cash on the spot. But then he thought about what she said. It stuck with him. He went to Reebok and said he wasn't renewing his contract. He walked away from a $40 million deal.
$40 million.
Just like that. Just like that. He went to Walmart and Payless. He started his own line of Shaq shoes that sold for $19 or $29. He wanted to make sure that any kid who wanted to wear his shoes could afford them. And get this, he has sold over 400 million pairs of those affordable shoes.
That is incredible. He traded prestige for accessibility and probably made just as much money in volume, but he did it for the right reason.
It's the big Aristotle logic again. It makes sense.
We can't finish the Renaissance Man section without the entertainment. We mentioned the rap album earlier, but we need to clarify. This wasn't a vanity project that sold 500 copies.
No. Not at all. Shaq Diesel, his debut album in 1993, went platinum. That means it sold over 1 million copies.
And he wasn't rapping with nobodies either. He had some serious credibility.
He had legitimacy. He collaborated with the notorious B.I.G., Jay-Z, members of the Wu-Tang Clan. He even rapped on a Michael Jackson song.
Michael Jackson.
The song Too Bad on the History album. Shaq has a verse. How many people on this planet can say they have an NBA championship ring and a feature on a Michael Jackson track?
Just one. Just one guy. And the movies. We have to mention Kazam.
Kazam and Steel. Look, critically, they were disasters. I mean, Seal is often cited as one of the worst superhero movies ever made.
Yeah.
But did it matter? No. It kept him in the public eye. It made him a movie star to an entire generation of kids.
And now he's pivoted again. If you go to a music festival like Lollapalooza or Tomorrowland, you might see DJ Diesel on the lineup.
And this isn't him just pressing play on a playlist. He's actually mixing, he's producing electronic music. And the best part, he goes into the crowd. There are videos of him in the mosh pit, this 7-foot giant just raging with a bunch of 20-year-olds.
It brings us back to that duality of humor and aggression. He feeds off that energy. It's the same thing.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, we have to be honest. It wasn't all fun and games. Shaq is a lovable giant, but he has a thin skin.
The big quote can be sensitive.
Very. When the media turned on him, he was shut down. He had this thing he did called the murmur technique.
The murmur technique? What's that?
When he was obligated by his contract to talk to reporters, but he was mad at them, he would sit at his locker and speak so quietly, just murmuring his answers, that their tape recorders couldn't pick it up.
That is petty genius.
It was this passive-aggressive way of fulfilling his contract while giving them absolutely nothing.
There is also the Yao Ming controversy. This is something that hasn't aged well at all.
No, it hasn't. When Yao entered the league, Shaq felt threatened by another giant center.
Right.
He did. And he went on a radio show and made a mock Chinese comment. He used the Ching Chong slur. It was ignorant, and even for the early 2000s, it was really offensive.
How did Yao handle it? I remember that being a big deal.
With incredible grace. Yao basically joked that Chinese is a hard language to learn and diffused it. Shaq eventually apologized and admitted it was bad locker room humor. They actually became good friends later.
Yeah.
Yao's dad even cooked for Shaq. But it showed that when Shaq felt his dominance was challenged, he could lash out in some pretty ugly ways.
And then there's the flopping, the great hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy. Oh, man. Shaq hated Vlade Divac for flopping against him in the playoffs. He called him out constantly for faking falls. But then, late in his career, Shaq admitted to flopping against Dwight Howard to try and get a call.
And his excuse was amazing.
When he was called out on it, he basically said, "I was just trying to get a call. It's different when I do it." It was classic rules for thee, but not for me.
Exactly. So let's bring this in for a landing. We look at the legacy. The numbers are just staggering. 28,596 points. That's 9th all-time. 15 All-Star games. 4 rings.
And the jersey retirements. This is a big one. He is one of only 3 players to have his number retired by 3 different teams, the Lakers, the Heat, and the Magic. The only others are Wilt Chamberlain and Pete Maravich. That puts him in the rarest of air.
It really does. But here's the provocative thought I want to leave everyone with. Phil Jackson, the man who coached him to 3 titles, had a critique. He believed Shaq underachieved.
It sounds crazy to say a 4-time champ underachieved, but Phil's point was that Shaq had the physical tools to be the MVP for 10 years in a row. If he had the work ethic of a Kobe or a Jordan, if he came into camp in shape every single year, he could have been the undisputed Joes. Not just the most dominant, but the greatest player ever.
It begs the question, do we overvalue the grind? I mean, we worship Kobe for killing himself on the court, for playing through pain, for having no life outside of basketball. But Shaq showed up, dominated, had fun, made movies, made rap albums, made his money, and left with his knees mostly intact and a smile on his face.
Maybe Shaq isn't the cautionary tale about laziness that some people paint him as. Maybe he's the blueprint for a healthy, balanced life. He understood that basketball was what he did, not who he was.
So the final question is, did he sacrifice the title of greatest of all time to be the greatest of all life?
I think if you ask him, sitting on his yacht or DJing a festival in front of 50,000 people, he's probably okay with that trade.
I think I'd take the life he lived over 10 MVPs any day.
That's it for this deep dive into the big Aristotle. Thanks for listening.
Stay curious.